Hello, everyone. Sylvia here, going live and going to. Tonight's topic is going to be multi dog households. Maybe you have one, maybe you're thinking about having one. I'm just going to go over just an overview. I'd love to hear from you if you have a multi dog household and how is it going and how you handle it. I would love, love, love to hear from you. So, I'm a couple minutes late. Sorry. I looked at myself in the screen and I kept wanting to get up and brush my hair, but I got up and did something else. So I am here and I'm going to get started. I'm not going to wait for anybody to join. Uh, it's here and you can rewatch it. If you're watching the replay, if this is too early, if it's too early for you, I'd love feedback if you prefer me to change the time of the evening chats because I am happy to change it in order for you to attend. So feedback's always, always welcome. And so let's talk about multi-dog households and see what we can think about in regards to having one. Hang on, I'm just going to get rid of something here and here and there we go. Okay, so okay, and I can see your comments if there are any. So some of you don't have a multi-dog household and you might not be interested. Maybe there'll be some tidbits that you can share with your friends or family. Or you might be thinking about multi-dog households. Um, you know, uh, you know, if you're thinking about bringing in a new dog, I'd love to hear from you. And so, bringing in a new dog, do you think it's easy? And do you think all dogs are going to love each other? And will they get along? Who thinks a multi dog household is easy? So, I have to say it depends. There are so many factors to think about. I've had multi-dog household for quite a long time. And I have to say, when you're looking at dogs as individual, they're all different and you're going to have different personalities coming together. So the dynamics are always going to be different. They're not going to be similar with every pair or three that you might have. Multi-dog households change as dogs leave. Multi-dog households change as dogs come into the house, and often we think, well, dogs are pack animals and they're going to have the pack mentality. Yes and no, but something to consider as the dogs are not related. So you might see that not being true if they're not related. So, things that we want to think about when we're bringing in another dog is, are they able to be tolerant around resources, just approaches from us, other dogs approaching, and spaces, because that is typically often one of the top reasons where dogs are not getting along in a multi-dog home, but there are definitely other reasons. So we always want to think about possible conflict, and we want to always think about creating a positive attraction, building relationships. We want the interactions to be primarily positive. And of course, we don't want the conflict. We want to build valuable relationships, and that might mean that we have to help that along. So, if there is a conflict, that is, when you might see aggression starting with interdogs just because something happened and we're in a real hurry to get our dogs back together again, and maybe we need to give them some time off from each other just to kind of empty their stress bucket, and and then create some positive time around each other. So you want to really be supportive of your dogs if there's any harassment that has started. It can happen. And you want to change the relationship as fast as possible, because that's really not really comfortable for any dog to have to go through that. And again, always building valuable relationship, encouraging positives between and among residents dog. So a lot of people, and you hear this, and this is something that is seen in, I talked about this when I talked about the dog parks, that oh, just let them work it out. It can be true for low level, if it's safe, but you want to be careful. If it's really low level and there's really, really quick reconciliation between them, and the relationship is okay and not damaged, it's all right. But you do want to try and avoid conflicts from happening. Um, they do happen. It's not an abnormal thing to see in a multi-dog home. Um, you know, you want them to be safe. Sometimes it's just ritualized, and there's really not any damage being done. It's just a lot of noise and posturing. So you always want to watch what's happening. Um, it's really great to encourage play together. And, that's pretty easy to do. You do want to make sure that your dogs aren't resource guarding an item if you're using an item to play with. And typically, what I do, it depends. Like, you might have dogs that like different toys, which makes it easier because then you don't have to worry about the one trying to take the other toy, because that's when conflict can happen. But you can definitely set up very easily a little game of fetch. And if you have lots of space, and I encourage you doing this in an area that has lots of space where you can throw things for, say, you have two dogs. When you have more multiples, then it becomes problematic. And turn taking is probably a good idea at this point, if you have more than two dogs, depending. And, you can be sending them in, sending them away, but they're not close together. So there's no conflict, there's no competition happening. Even if you go out and you play any kind of recall games amongst the family, it's nice to, you know, do it a little bit individually so that there's not any kind of real racing. You can create conflict there just because, it's really exciting and they're getting really aroused. And if they're running alongside together, that can, one might think they're chasing the other, and then, you can see some ritualization happening there. So sending them off alone or singly, and then sending the other one afterwards. My two dogs, Liam is definitely faster than Emma. She's got the short legs, so she cannot run as fast. So it's easy for us to kind of coordinate that. And we try and watch it too. If they're getting a little too excited about the running a little bit too much for Liam, I have to be careful because then he gets a little over aroused. I mean, he's getting a lot better because I do work on that along, for quite some time. So I do set up situations where they're training together. So I might have them on either side of me, and I might be working on some different behaviors. So that's relationship building. They're not missing out because one's getting trained and the other getting trained. But having said that, I will do activities singular with them depending on what it is. So if I'm doing any kind of scent work, I will put the one dog away. I could put them on a station on a stay, but I have to say that they love scent work so much. So the fear of missing out will be really, really, really big. And it's just not worth that because dogs can get a little upset if the other dog really wants to chime in and bud their way into the game that they're playing and they want to enjoy on their own. So I will, baby gate them away if I'm doing it outside. One stays inside, and you can do stuff like that. There's other things where I do have one dog sitting on a boundary, a bed, waiting their turn, so that they do learn turn taking. So that's really nice because they're learning that they aren't missing out with the activities that they're enjoying. So I do that, and it is a nice way to get them, you know, not, so that you're not building conflict in those types of situations. I also suggest, when you're giving them any kind of foraging toys, it's nice for them to have their own spots. And that's why, boundary training is really, really helpful. Because if you kind of set up a routine of this is where they get their cool foraging toys like topples and kongs and licky mats, then they just eventually, once you build a really strong routine, they just go to their own places. And sometimes if you've got a puppy, you need to set that up because puppies want to get in on the action. And if you have an older dog, then you just want to set up some separation there. And, you want to create that positive emotional contagion around each other. So always minimizing opportunities for conflict. And sometimes we need to think about that. Even like opening a new bag of dog food that can create conflict, or leaving a bag of new treats that you bought from the pet store and leaving them on the ground, that can create some conflict. So just being aware of stuff like that. It could even be groceries if you have something really smelly in there that your dog may like. You want to consider that. And you want to see if there's, one dog is actively avoiding. You want to know what it looks like, and you want to know when it's happening and in what situations. You really don't want to force contact when one dog is hesitant, and you just you don't want to do that because that is not how you build the relationship. You can build relationships very easily. They don't have to be really close together. You can have baby gates between each other, and that gives either both dogs or one dog some relief, and you're just building that whole positive scenario amongst them. Like I say, resource guarding tends to be a common trigger with dog interhousehold that, presents as aggression. It's not the only reason, but it is one of the top reason. And, you want to teach your both dogs or all dogs that triggers are easy and they're not a big deal, and that there is no real need for competition. I will say that resource guarding among dogs is, you know, it. I'm going to use the word common, but it's not. It is that. I mean, that's what they do with each other. But you want to pay attention to that. I don't want to normalize it, but I am happier when dogs are resource guarding between each other as opposed to humans, because it is a little more normal between dogs. But I'm always paying attention to that because I want to make sure that that behavior isn't, getting really heated up and continuing, which can happen. You can have items that are hot, even something that has been, something like a bone or a topple, and the dogs have been in their own areas and are doing that, and they tend to be a little bit finished. Those items can still stay, I'll use the word hot. So if one dog tends to be a little bit resource guardy, they, you know, they may start guarding the whole general area. So you want to pay attention to those kinds of things. It's always good to just pick those things up right away. Um, and, like I say, you always want to be looking at minimizing opportunities for conflict. Senior versus puppy, that is a very common thing. If you want to have a multi-dog household, it is a lot easier if you're bringing a puppy into a home where you have a younger dog already. So typically we see, um, you know, the resident dog, if they're 2 years old, because they're still young, they're still playful, and they're still at that age where they love to play with other dogs. So, even a little bit younger is okay. It depends on how social the dogs are. But when we've got a dog that's, maybe 8 years old, and they're kind of just, well, first of all, if they've never lived with another dog, they've spent 8 years being the only dog, that can be a problem. It's not a hard and fast rule, but often, a senior dog isn't really crazy about a puppy who wants to be jumping all over them. So you want to save that. You want to pay attention to the body language and really watch. And if you're not really sure there are subtle signs, sometimes the senior dog just moves away. But there could be head turns and stuff like that. So you want to set up where puppy has their own area, the senior or resident dog has their own area, and they know they're safe there. So I've got um, one set of clients. They got a puppy with a senior dog who the senior dog had needed some training anyway, but very, very clear that, they are not interested in the puppy. They're not interested in playing with the puppy. They're not interested in the puppy constantly jumping on their bed. So we're setting up some really cool ways for them to handle that, and that way the puppy still gets what they need. And we don't create the conflict with the senior puppy, or the senior dog, because their stress levels go up, and then you might see behavior changes happening because of that. So you want to be really mindful of those things. And if you need help with that, you can always contact me. You definitely want to protect older dogs from puppies. And having said that, I mean, I have seen older dogs who are dog savvy. So, the situation I just talked about is often something you see in a household where that senior dog, like I say, was the only dog, and just is very content being the only dog, as opposed to a senior dog who may have been living in a multi dog household their whole life. So it is easier. If they're very savvy with dog language, they can still protect themselves, which I have seen that, and I have had multi-dog households that are like that. Um, and again, I'm always watching. If the puppy gets the message, and stays away, then I know everything's okay, and I don't have to intercede too much. Depends on how old the dog is. So if they're a real senior and you've got a little bit of cognitive decline, then you might see a little bit of aggression come out with that. But um, so don't be afraid to set up separate areas. We're always in a hurry to bring dogs together, and but by keeping them separate and kind of having a gated community and setting up for success and setting up where there is no conflict handling and no conflict happening, you can eventually transition dogs together, even if it isn't a senior dog. And you want to remember, training together has a very, very big impact. And it's not as hard as you think it is. There's just, a lot of easy things that you can do, just getting all dogs sitting in a row, for treats, obviously with a little bit of space in between. I've even done the mouse game with, my dogs and then a foster dog. And I just do that sitting on the floor so that I can have a little bit more control. And I'm always going to keep things happy. You want a lot of happy talk, a lot of jolly talk. Reprimands aren't going to play any role, and they're not going to help you at all. So you can try picking compatible housemates if possible. It is sometimes possible to, if you know your resident dog really, really well. And yeah, sometimes we can pick them, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. You might be thinking about same sex pairs. So there is evidence of conflict being possible. But honestly, if you have a really sociable dog, it's not gonna be as difficult. How social your dog is with other dogs is definitely going to be a contributing factor, whether it's gonna end up good and end up bad. I've had lots of people say, oh, you can't have females together. And it's just, what? I've seen enough to understand that it really does depend on the dog in front of you and how sociable you are. I mean, I've had, situations. At one point, they weren't all my dogs. I was looking after them, but um, I think I had like 5 or 6 female terriers, and a terrier from, like, every dog was a different terrier. And people would say, oh, well, you can't do that. Well, yeah, you can. They were all very, very sociable. They were all very happy. Uh, I had a big space. The house was big. The yard was big. So there was, the space has, does contribute to that as well. So you do want to definitely consider the size of your home, and your property when you have a multi-dog home. The smaller it is, you're likely going to have more choke points, and you want to look at that so that you're opening spaces up. Living rooms tend to be those types of places. So if you've got, a love seat and a couch and a coffee table, and there's all these little choke points, you may see more tension, because you want to create those easy access, open in and out for the dogs, so they're not feeling constrained. So this is just an overview of some things to think about, and I'm really happy if you're watching this. If you're watching replay, #replay. Sorry, last week, I don't know why I could not go live. I tried to go live on the Monday instead of the Tuesday because I did go away to a conference, and it just didn't work for some reason. And I do not know why it wouldn't let me go on. I think I tried like 5 or 6 times, and it just didn't work. So I'm here tonight. I Next week I won't be able to do the Tuesday live. I will be out of commission. If Next Monday is Halloween, so nobody's really going to want to come on. So we're going to skip next week again. If there's any topics that you're interested in, I'd really love to hear. And I hope this was helpful. Like I say, it's just an overview and just some things to think about if you do have a multi-dog household and if you see a little bit of conflict, or if you're thinking about it. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to hear from you. So you have a great night. Thank you for watching.